Good morning, afternoon, evening, day, good day. My name is Kim. I am the Children and Young Adult Consultant with the Connecticut State Library. I am here with my buddy Nicole from Bloomfield to talk about Science Bytes. And from what I've seen of it already, it sounds really cool. So share with us so we can borrow/steal it from you, please.
Excellent. So thank you, Kim, and thank you for the Connecticut Library for letting me talk about my program. And I have talked about my science program at some CLA sessions before, but I wanted to talk about it in the context of our new library world, current pandemic, post-pandemic, however you want to view it. We're all operating a little differently now, and I have transformed my science program into an on-demand program series, and I'm loving what it's doing in our community, and that's what I wanted to share. But let me give you a little background first. When I first started working at Bloomfield Public Library, one of the first programs I started up was a science program. I had done it at a previous library. It had been a big success as an after-school program. STEM is usually an easy sell with families and schools, and so I reinvented it for Bloomfield. I called it Science Explorers Club. We did it in the library. Like a traditional program, we used the community room. I set out supplies. I pre-measured things. I had the kids come in, and I very quickly realized this was going to be different than when I had done it at a different library. Every community is different. And in Bloomfield, we have a lot of families that have two working parents. So we don't have a lot of kids who have the luxury of just coming to an after-school program because they need to wait on someone. And a lot of these kids do not just after-school activities, but extended learning after school. They go to leisure services because they need people to take care of them until mom and dad get home from school. Even if it's not about the education, they need somebody looking after them. So I knew I had to change the timing. So I said, all right, I'll do it in the early evening. Hopefully not messing with anyone's dinner, and we'll see how that goes. And that worked for a while. So I did it like at 6:30 p.m. So families, I'd get about 12 to 20 kids who would register. Families would come out, but that didn't last very long. But there are a couple of things I noticed. I noticed that when families were coming out, they all wanted to do my program as a family unit. So I would get grandma and grandpa and mom and dad and younger sibling and older sibling and everybody in between. They came back to the library in the evening as a family unit, and they all wanted to participate in the program, which made content a bit of a challenge, but it was also exciting because you would have like 80-year-old grandma who was getting super excited about like blowing bubbles. It was a lot of fun, challenging, but fun. But then I saw attendance starting to drop, and I knew from talking to families, it was just a rough time of day because even people who wanted to come to these programs, we all know we come home from a day at work, and it's like that day at work, and you're like, oh, I'm just so tired. Oh, why are you screaming about dinner? Why? Oh, and then they just wouldn't come. And I'd get like 2 kids, and it was a lot of effort for 2 kids because anybody who's done this kind of a program before, you spend like an hour and a half in setup. You're pouring little things of glue, and you're pouring little this and tablecloths everywhere, and it was a lot of work for 2 kids. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I was at this point, and this is pre-pandemic, where I was sort of like, do I keep doing this program? Do I abandon it entirely, or do I come up with a new way to do it? And I have been starting to think about, well, we have this YouTube channel we do nothing with. We have it. Bloomfield Public Library has a YouTube channel, and I think we have like 1 test video out there from I don't know when, but nobody was using it. So I was like, there's got to be something I can do with YouTube. Like a lot of librarians, I know a little about a lot of things. So I'm not an expert about tons of things, but I'm comfortable with Sarah saying, all right, I've been to YouTube. I can figure this out. So I had been starting to think along those lines, well, what would that mean? How would I get supplies to people? Because not everybody happens to have cocoa powder at home or some other thing. And just as I had started to think about those things, pandemic hit. And we all know what happened with that. Like, all the libraries shut down. Everything, we're all like, what? We're closed to the public. People are like hermits in their houses. Like, what do we do now? And this actually, you can't say a lot of like positive sparky things happened with the pandemic, but honestly, when that pandemic hit, I had that like spark moment where I was like, now's my time. This is it. We're pulling the trigger. I said, Science Explorers Club is gone. We're reinventing. I'm doing it entirely virtual, and we're figuring this out. And I decided to call it Science Bytes. I knew I wanted it to be on YouTube. But I'm like, how do I do this? What do I know how to do? How do I make this happen? Well, I had an iPad from work. I have an iPhone myself, so I'm familiar with iMovie in the sense that I know it's there. I've opened it before to say testing, but I knew somebody, if I Googled how to iMovies, there's going to be 4,300 videos from like 12-year-olds showing me how to use iMovie. So I knew I could figure this out. So then now I really had to think about, how am I going to do materials? How am I going to do all this other stuff? And, now, historically, our community was like a paper flyer community. We weren't even big on social media. Like we would spend obscene amounts of time printing paper flyers, getting them out in the community, posting them in farm stands. Like, paper flyers were king. And so it was nervous. I'm like, how am I even going to make people know there's something on YouTube? Nobody even knows it exists in Bloomfield. But I had the idea starting. So for supplies, it became obvious to me right out of the gate, because we all started doing curbside things. So, and that had been my thinking anyways, is, well, you can throw some stuff in a brown lunch bag and make people pick it up. And when we started doing curbside for everything, I'm like, perfect, this is what I can do. I was already aiming most of my science programs on a simple level. I wanted my science programs, even when they were in person, to be more like kitchen science kind of things, with maybe the occasional like dramatic demonstration that I shared with the kids. Because I wanted kids to be able to take these learnings home and to replicate them. Those kids who did come by themselves or only with dad, but didn't get a chance to show mom, they could say, Mom, you'll never guess what happens when you put some food coloring in milk and take a Q-tip with some soap on it. Oh my God. So they could then show it at home, and it could be exciting. And because kids love to share knowledge. So I was already keeping the content simple. So I knew that the supplies would be relatively simple in most cases. Usually stuff we have around the library. It might be stuff that we could pick up at the grocery store. Little cup containers to put things in. They might need, for some reason they needed an obscene amount of salt. I would buy some jugs of salt and put it in a little container. So you've got your 4 tablespoons of salt, just in case that's a problem for you at home, So if I could do it in a container for you, I would. Sometimes I bought things on Amazon. Sometimes I bought some really cool things from some specialty sources. And one that I'll probably talk about a little later too, is one I discovered, I'm going to say like a couple of years ago, called Educational Innovations. And they are an outfit out of Bethel, Connecticut. They're in Connecticut, and they have a website. They've actually teamed up with Science Bob Pfluger. I never know how to say his name. He has a series of books, but it's Pfleuger. Pfluger. That's how I say it in my head. It could be Pfluger. It could be Pfluger. I don't know how he says his name. Science Bob is his moniker. So Science Bob. But he is also now teamed up with them. But what's great about them is that they sell you classroom sets of materials. So you might be able to buy, like, I'm going to be doing a bouncy ball program soon. And you can buy a kit that has enough for like 24 different bouncy balls, and you can disperse those to 24 different kids. They also do links and labels to curriculum things, because they're also gearing their content towards teachers. They have demonstration items. So they have a lot of cool stuff on their website, and they're in Connecticut. So I'm going to, for educational innovations. But so I've had all my ideas. But you also, I'm going to transition here right to how I did the ideas, because then you're like, well, am I doing this? Am I reinventing everything from scratch? And you're like, no. Okay. And I think I heard this on The Office once. Michael Scott told it to Dwight, keep it simple, stupid. So that's what I did. I was like, Nicole, you're already like doing iMovie. You're doing stuff you don't know anything about. Why try and also come up with new content at the same time? I'm like, I'm just going to reuse content I already used in person. It's been a couple of years since I did that first program with Science Explorers Club. And one of the things I always make sure I do with my science programs, and I think we should do it with any programs we're going to repeat, is I keep I actually keep a blog on our website that has all the details about my program. So that time I did the slime program, I also put the slime recipe that worked, because we always test things before we do it in front of a bunch of kids. So you find that I used this person's recipe and it didn't quite work, but I knew when I added a little extra this, it worked just great. So I had all these details of programs that I had already done in person. So now it was just, which one is the cool one that I want to start with? So I knew I was going to reuse and recycle my Science Explorers Club content. I also had, like a lot of librarians, I pay attention to a lot of information and content that's out there in the world. One of my favorites is Steve Spangler. He's big on science, and I found out he had a conference, and it was a big deal. It was called Science in the Rockies. He's based in Colorado, and it was geared towards educators, but librarians sometimes forget that we are also educators, because they gear a lot of these educational conferences to teachers. But we also are teaching kids, and we're teaching adults, and we're teaching others. And these conferences also apply to us. We're often a smaller demographic at the conferences, but they apply to us. And the first time I went to the Steve, I went a couple times. And the first time I went, I discovered that CLA, Connecticut Library Association, has this wonderful thing called a PEG grant. And it's a proficiency enhancement grant. And nobody pays attention to this. I think when I first applied, they basically told me, nobody ever applies for this. We always want to just throw money at people. The maximum amount they give you is $400, and it's usually towards a registration or something like that. But you go through a very simple application process. They have a few times a year that they review applications and make awards. And I was able to use twice, I think, I got awarded a PEG grant to go to this Science in the Rockies. And you just have to tell them, what you learned when you went to this conference. And what was amazing about this conference is it totally changed how I thought about delivering content to kids. And you had the benefit of, even though it was an expensive conference, you had to fly out to Colorado. The conference itself was, I think, close to $1,000 to register for like 3 days, but you came home with $500 worth of science supplies. Many of them were classroom kits worth of stuff you could give to kids. Many of them were demonstration things that I still use every single year. So it's like the gift that keeps on giving. So anytime I hear somebody's doing science, I say, try and go to Steve Spangler, because it's fun. It teaches you to look at how, not just science, how you present content to kids in a totally different way to make it super engaging, less of the, oh, this is what we're doing, and I'm pretending I'm your science teacher from school, but there's no test, but that's the only difference. No, I was an English major, so I don't know science that well. So when I'm doing a science program, I'm sharing like the one nugget that I think they should know about this topic, and then let's get our hands into it, and then that's it. And and I might do a demonstration. I'm like, isn't this cool? That's how I do it, and that's kind of how Steve Spangler does it. And it was freeing to see somebody do things like that without this big focus on, let me see how much information I can give you. And no, you focus on this, one or two simple things, and then, focus on the fun, because that's what kids will remember. But so I like to mention the Steve Spangler. Here's another example of just paying attention to what's going on around you. So I was on Instagram, because I just like browsing Instagram, and I saw that there was something called USA Science and Engineering Festival and Expo, and it was happening in DC. And I was like, that sounds perfect. It's geared towards middle school and high school. You can go to this expo floor and see all these like cool science things happening. I'm like, I'm in. I don't know if I can do anything, but there's probably all robots and growing hydro plants, but I might find something I can do. And then, of course, there was like one of those pandemic surges, and it got canceled. So I could not go. They shut down Washington, D.C. And I was like, oh, nuts. But I was hooked into their stuff because now I had registered. And because I was hooked into their stuff, I get their little Instagram-y posts and emails and things. And they partner with a lot of other people. And one outfit that they partner with, and I'm going to forget the name off the top of my head. We might see it later. They're a group that does genomics, I think is what they call it, for DNA. They study DNA. And there's apparently an International DNA Day. Who knew? And every year on International DNA Day, they just want people to like learn about DNA and maybe get inspired to do a career in DNA. And because we want to do that, we're going to send you all free kits to do strawberry DNA projects. Just tell us how many you need. And they, I'm always like, how about 35? Because I don't want to be really, greedy. 35 would be good. And they send you like, enough to like portion out. You have to do the portioning. So it's very like Muppets Beaker moment, because you're sitting there like at your desk at work and you got an eyedropper and you're putting it all into little containers for kids. My coworkers get a kick out of that, but you portion it out, and then kids love it because they've got all these like, tubes with ethanol something or other and this, and they get home and and then they've got strawberry DNA. And that's 2 years in a row now, because now that I've done it once, now I get an email that just says, do you want some free DNA stuff this year for International DNA Day? I'm like, yep. I'm the queen of free stuff, like many librarians. But so you get connected to that kind of stuff. PBS still has stuff online for parents. It's geared towards parents. I'm connected to a few parent blogs, the mom who does like a program for her preschooler. That preschool program, guess what? That project is also appealing to a tween, especially if they've never done it before, so there's tons of ideas out there. So I just, any place I can browse or look, I do. And you're going to get ideas everywhere, even science museums. I'll go to a children's science museum and just look at the displays. Oh, look what they're doing with like, paper airplanes over here. That is cool. And it's a paper airplane. I can do paper. Picture. Click, click, click. I can replicate this. And oh, we get to make one to take home. And then you get home and you unfold it and try and replicate it. So there's tons of things you can do. So I had ideas plenty. So there I got sidetracked on ideas. But so now it was like, how do I film and edit this thing? It was like procrastination here. It's like, okay, now I got the ideas. I know how I'm distributing it. How am I doing this? So I kept it really simple. I knew we had some of these at work, but I wanted my own at home because I just didn't want to have to, I didn't want to have to share. I knew that I might need it when somebody else needed it. So I said, I'm going to see how much it costs. And I bought myself a very simple, I don't even know if I have to pull it out to show you, but it's a very simple, I'll just pull out a little bit of it, like a stand that I can use for my iPad, because I have a work iPad, I have a personal iPad, but that just keeps it steady, because any of us know if you're trying to hold your iPad, you may think you're being steady, but it looks kind of like this as soon as you play back the video. we're wiggling, we don't even realize it. So I knew I needed to keep it steady, and I knew, like I said, I know I'm good at playing around on my iPad, so I knew about iMovie. I knew I could find videos on how to use it simply. And there was also something I had discovered by happenstance, which I'm just going to definitely recommend to people. Everybody in the library community talks about Canva, which is great for flyers and things. I've got a lot of great templates. But Adobe has this really fantastic free suite of apps. The one I like to use is called Adobe Creative Cloud Express. But it lets you make creative slides or posts for social media. You can make an Instagram slide. You can make an Instagram wide video thing. But it has all these little neat features, like there are these stickers, they call them stickers, you can insert while you're designing it. And they're like little animated things. So, if you see one of my Instagram posts and there's a Pikachu dancing across, I did not do that. I inserted a sticker from Adobe Creative. I can't like HTML, that kind of stuff. So that's all Adobe. So I like it because I've also created little slides that act as transitions in my videos. So if I'm gonna post an actual list of ingredients and sort of pause on that, I'll do that in Adobe Creative. If I'm going to, if I want a fun little transition slide with like a dancing strawberry for strawberry DNA, it's there. I have one in my DNA video. There's like this one cool like spiraling DNA strand and one transition slide. That was Adobe Creative too. So this is where I'm getting that stuff. It's a cool tool to enhance stuff you're already doing. And then iMovie, honestly, we could do, I'm sure there's a tutorial through the state library or the service center or somewhere at some point, because and like I said, they're on, you can go to YouTube and there's a bunch of people who are showing you the ins and outs of iMovie. I did it just by poking around on my own. It's super simple. You literally just dump videos in, and then it's just a question of splitting where, you know, that transition period where you're like, oh man, my nose is itching. And, you know, and so you've recorded that, but that's okay. You can delete it. You can wipe that out. You can get rid of that entirely. So you're basically just cutting out the stuff you don't want. Because the biggest issue I found with recording videos is that you tend to go long. You put in way more than you need. And I learned early on that I wanted to keep them shorter, and I learned this a variety of ways. I had been thinking about, again, how am I going to make people know that there's even a YouTube video out there? Because our community wasn't really on social media heavily. There was somebody on our Facebook page, but not tons of people, lots of librarians probably initially. But how do I get the word out? So I'm going to put it everywhere I can put it. So when I make these YouTube videos, on our events calendar, I put the link to the YouTube video for that post. I post it as a program on that events calendar, and there's a link that takes you to the YouTube video. I found out that Instagram actually has something called Instagram TV. So if you don't know Instagram, you can just post things. You can post little, like teaser videos that'll just do like a minute of your video. But as long as it's less than 15 minutes, you can post that entire video on Instagram. And I have to say, I get my biggest bang for views on Instagram through Instagram TV. When I did an oobleck video for around Dr. Seuss's birthday, I think it was like one of those days where I'm like, I feel like I'm going viral, even though it's not really. I mean, because I was used to saying, oh my God, 40 views. And then all of a sudden with oobleck, it was like 250. And I was like, but it was just like, it was amazing. So I knew because of Instagram, I had this natural sort of timeline, this limit to how long I wanted my videos. They should be 15 minutes. And I had another sort of cautionary moment early on. I knew we didn't have limits on our YouTube. We have a professional YouTube account. We can go as long as we want on our YouTube videos. And I was doing a summer video for Candy Science. And I thought, this is great. Everybody loves Candy Science. I'm just going to do a montage of all my favorite experiments. And it lasted for like an hour, even after editing. I'm like, but no problem. YouTube, we just won't do, we'll do a teaser on Instagram this time. But what I found is that really eats up a lot of space on your iPad. And when you do that much at one go on your iPad, a lot of your bits and pieces are living in the cloud. And when you go to try and upload that video or download it to your iPad so you can then upload it, I just kept getting error messages, too big, not enough space, bad things. And I, even working with my techie person, I was like, how do I fix this? I spent like days recording this. And I think we ended up, if memory serves, we had to sort of split things in chunks and then get it somewhere where I could reassemble it, but lesson learned, no need to make a video 1 hour long because, my idea had been kids can stop and start whenever they feel like it, but nope, whose attention span is like an hour long anyways for watching Miss Nicole on Science Bytes. So we'll just do 15 minutes. So I knew all my videos are always 15 minutes or less. Often requires a lot of editing because there's a lot of stuff you want to share. But again, it's keep it simple. I won't call myself stupid 2 times in a row, but keep it simple. Sometimes I get carried away with and did you know this happened in the Cretaceous period? And then I'm like, okay, they really didn't need to know that for static electricity. So I delete. It pains me because I thought it was cool, but delete. So you get used to trimming yourself down and keeping it in a workable length. I actually, in terms of how I do it, I'm fortunate that I work for the town of Bloomfield and of course my library, and both my director and the town, ever since the pandemic hit especially, have been very supportive of flex working. So what I usually do, just so I have my own space to do things, is I usually do a Science Bytes. I post a Science Bytes video about once a month. Sometimes I take a month off for planning. And in order to do that video, I also do 1 flex day per month at home. And I take in that 1 day, I film and edit and post to YouTube all in that 1 day. It's like my whole day focus. So I get it done in 1 day. And then you can post them in advance. You can schedule them to go live at a certain point. I always aim to do it the first Wednesday of the month so people can kind of get used to a certain time. But then you know exactly what time you're working with. And my coworkers know what I'm working with. So you're not trying to do the same thing all day long. People might have work environments that have a really good space to do it at work, which is great. And somebody might have a buddy. Like there might be somebody who has like, the intern or the teen volunteer, or somebody who would love to be like your videographer and just like follow you and then do all the editing, and you can just be like the but I don't have that. So I have to do my own stuff. But I did think to myself, this is an idea. See, this is what happens when you wake up too. I was thinking about this discussion. I thought, it would be cool to do like a Mr. Wizard kind of, and now I'm dating myself. It is even before my time, but Mr. Wizard kind of thing where like, you have like a guest kid from the community who like participates in your filming. If you're filming in your library, you can say, oh, Jamal, you know what? I'm choosing you for October and we're going to do bubble science. And it's you and the kid doing the project. I thought that would be kind of cool. That was an idea I just had this morning, but you have to be able to film where kids can be, but all right. But one of the things that I know I'm going a little tangential here, but one of the reasons why I wanted to share this idea with all of you is not just because of my science program, but because of this concept of on-demand programming. And a lot of us know just the world we're living in now, a lot of us are doing a lot of things on demand. Very few people have regular television anymore. Everybody's got a Fire Stick. They watch TV when they want to. They watch what they want to when they want to. People are used to kind of doing stuff in their own time frames now. And I have noticed with my Science Bytes from feedback I've gotten that sometimes people do it as soon as it's posted. They do the project with me remotely. Sometimes they do it a month later. I've had people say, I took home that slime kit and this just happened to be 1 month later, the perfect Saturday. My kids were all home. Soccer was canceled. I didn't know what to do. I pulled out slime kits and it was amazing. I've had a grandmother who comes to me and tells me regularly, we love it. Every time you post a video, I sit down with my granddaughter and we both do the project together. I've had adults who've said, I watch every one of your science videos. And normally I would not have an adult audience other than parents and caregivers in my program. And these are adults who just want to continue learning, right? We all want to keep learning, and these are cool little factoids. And so I get an adult audience who watches the videos. So you don't really, it broadens your audience. You never know how many people you're reaching. I've had some kids approach me, kids I didn't even, they weren't part of my in-person science program, but they'll say to me all of a sudden, after they ask for Dog Man, and when are you posting the next science video? And I'm like, you watch my science video? And it's very heartwarming, and it feels good, and it makes you realize you are reaching way more people than you know. And it's not just science programs that you can do this kind of thing with. I've done it's a great opportunity for librarians who have passion projects to do things. I love cooking and baking. So I've done some on-demand series about like simple treats you can make for the holidays and just things I find on Pinterest. And I think it's just a neat way to connect with our community in a different way. You can have archived programs that you've done in the library that people can watch when they can. We've offered through performers some on-demand programming, Tanglewood Marionettes, which if you haven't seen them, they're amazing with their puppetry. During the pandemic, they refined a virtual program series with their shows, and they will offer it to you for like a week. So anytime during that week, if your kids wake up at 5 a.m. and you're trying to settle them down, open up the Tanglewood Marionettes video. If you're trying to if you're doing lunchtime, but we want to do something and watch TV too, Tanglewood Marionettes, right? You can do it whenever it makes sense for you. And I think that really makes patrons feel valued and makes them feel like you're paying attention to the fact that they have crazy lives like the rest of us, and they can't always be at the library for this specific time, for this specific program. And even for the live programs, I can't always. Sometimes I want to see more than one thing at the same time. And I'm like, well, I have to pick. Am I going to do the sewing one, or am I going to do the thing about graveyards? It's October. But there's all sorts of spooky things going on these months. But so it's a great way to really make your patrons feel valued. And I'm probably running a little long here, but I wanted to show a couple of quick just snippets of some videos so you see some of the things, and I'm just going to do little snippets of a few different videos so that you can see different elements of things that I like from different videos. I mean, as I do the videos, let me make sure I'm showing that right. I tend to refine what I'm doing every time I do a video, it changes a little more. I learn a new trick. So here is just an example of, this will go away in a second. But this is just an example. This shows you that my Science Bytes playlist on YouTube. So I made sure that I tagged all of these in a playlist. So if anybody goes to our YouTube page, they can literally just say, I want to see the Science Bytes playlist, and it'll pull up the whole list of Miss Nicole Science Bytes videos. This video I wanted to show you because I talked about Adobe Creative, and this is an example of a little slide that I created in Adobe Creative that I used as an intro to my video. All the things you're going to see here were all little stickers and animations that came through Adobe Creative. I was doing a program on paper airplanes. So you'll see here, all the little folding, all that was all done through Adobe Creative.
Hi, everybody.
This I wanted to show as an example of how I sometimes package up some of my supplies. I usually just use brown lunch bags to send stuff home with kids, but this will show you some of how I package it up. In this case, I also used Adobe Creative to do a little slide that lists the ingredients and the amounts, and then I show kids what I used. So you can see that's another little animation.
What I gave you is glue, and I measured out 1/4 cup. So here's my 1/4 cup. So you got 1/4 cup of glue, and it's just regular Elmer's glue. At the library, I have a big jug of it. But if you were doing this from home, you could probably just get 1 container of glue like this, and this would give you enough glue. I also gave you liquid starch. And liquid starch is found in the laundry aisle at the supermarket. Looks something like this. There's different brands. Any brand will work. I also gave you a bowl so we can mix our slime in this. You don't even have to dirty up your dishes at home. This is what we'll mix our slime in. And inside this was the little container of thermochromic powder. This is our extra special ingredient. When you buy the powder, I bought it from Amazon. It comes in usually 10 gram or 20 gram packs. This is a 20 gram bag of the thermochromic powder. And it was about, depending on the seller, it was anywhere from, I think, $16 to $20. So I made sure I gave everybody 1 teaspoon of thermochromic powder. The only ingredient that I didn't provide that you will want to have on hand, you will need a little bit of water. You only need 1 tablespoon of water. So if you have a little cup nearby and you just fill it with water, that'll be enough. And you can just dip your tablespoon measurer in there and pour it into your experiment.
So that gives you an idea of how I sometimes package up ingredients. This is a bubble science video, and I like this because it gave me a chance to do some cool action shots for the video. I could go out in my yard and show the giant bubble wand in action.
Slowly separate it. So now I am going to show you this amazing bubble wand in action out in my yard.
And that music comes from iMovie. They have a lot of pre-programmed soundtracky music and sound effects. So I just picked something kind of pretty that I thought went with what I was doing. You can see I slow-moed it there at the end. I was using a fancy trick. And this is an example of, I love this one. You'll see my mom makes a cameo. I love this one because I never try to, nobody expects me to be a professional videographer, and nobody expects everything to happen perfectly. If we do projects at home, they rarely go perfectly. And this is an example of, I think sometimes it's just as cool to show the process that gets you somewhere as it is to show like the perfect version of a demonstration or whatever you're doing on your video.
Now that we've got our tinsel orb
floating
ready to
tinsel
go,
orbs and
we
static
just have
electricity.
to charge our PVC stick. If you have a balloon, you could do your balloon too. Sometimes if you rub a balloon on your hair, it can get nice and staticky. But again, the PVC pipe is going to hold the charge better and work longer for you. So I think the first thing I'm going to try to do is charge my PVC pipe with my sweater, because I think sometimes it's worked in the past. So let's see if that works for me. Okay, I can hear static being produced when I rub it on my sweater, but I'm not getting enough of a charge to float my tinsel orb, so I think I'm going to try the socks that I'm going to give my sister's husband for Christmas. They're wool. Shh, we won't tell him that I'm using it for a static experiment. Okay, we haven't had tons of success with my sweater or the sock. They're producing static, but not enough. But I happen to know that my mom's hair works really well. So she's sacrificing herself for science. So we're gonna try my mom's hair. Sorry.
And then just one last little clip, and this was just because it's a fan favorite. This is that strawberry DNA stuff I was telling you about. And this is an example of just the reaction you get at the very end, because this is that kit that I got for free thanks to just being part of the listserv for USA Science and Engineering Festival.
So we are now going to take the ethanol, which we were chilling in our glass, unscrew the cap.
And they sent me all those little
And we're
tubes,
just going to gently
all the
pour it
materials.
right in to our strawberry mixture. And almost right away, you can see some strange little white filmy things forming on the surface. So here you can see a little better the two layers that we now have in our cup. And if we look at the top, we see those strands of DNA. Now,
So that is probably more than you wanted to hear from me. But I'll turn it back to you, Kim. I think I went a little long here.
Who cares? I'm obsessed. I don't care. I have been out YouTubed on my own YouTube, and I'm here for it. That was so awesome. There's no. Thank you for being here with us. There's nothing else. There's nothing else to add. The kids love it. The adults love it. You get stuff for free. Don't reinvent the wheel. Pinterest is your friend. But I also like the way that you approach this. Like, you're not coming at this. I think so often it's so easy to get caught up in a program for program's sake, right? Just to like do the thing because that's what we do. But there was so much thought and consideration put into your whole process from sort of where you started to when the pandemic ruined everything, as it does, to pivoting and ultimately fulfilling a need in your community that you knew was there, but like sort of during a time when everything was a disaster. I don't have anything to ask. I got nothing.
It works great for community partnerships too. During the height of the pandemic, when all the schools were still doing everything virtually too, I actually was virtually visiting a 4th grade class using their Google Classroom. And she was sharing my science videos with the kids at home as a way to give them like projects and things to do. So there's all different ways you can take this on the road. You can, because all classrooms have these smart boards now. So if you're visiting an after school program, I can pull up one of my videos and say, let's do this one together. You can watch me, but I'll be here live too, and we'll figure this out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great ways to use this kind of stuff.
I love it. Approximately how many of them do you make? I guess that's maybe the only thing.
I usually do one a month. And I usually take 1 or 2 months off during the year. So usually January I take off. I usually take off like June because it's right before summer reading. We're all going crazy. So there's usually like 1 or 2 months where I take time off for planning, or just because I know it's going to be crazy and weird at the library, and come up with the ideas. I usually plan about a quarter's worth at a time. So I'll say, all right, I know which ones I'm doing for the fall. Bing, bang, boom. So I've got those 3 months planned. And then do I want to take a break for that 4th month, or do I want to do another few right away? You know, sometimes it changes. Sometimes I revisit and do the same program, but in a slightly different way. Like bubble science, you can do bunches of ways. You can do giant bubbles. You can do bouncing bubbles. You can do, let's do square bubbles. You can, there are a lot of these programs you can just do in a variety of different ways and still have fun with the same sort of stuff. I've had parents also send me like photos from home of like, you know, I can see me on the laptop, and like they've got the 4 kids around the table all doing my project together at home. And I'm just like,
no, I can't.
I know, it feels good. Feels good.
I didn't even do it, and it feels good to me.
You can watch my videos, Kim. And
I may. I'll go get some ethanol real quick from like wherever that is. I mean, this is great. I mean, it seems like you're able to find enough free things, enough things at like Aldi or Stop and Shop, you know, like really simple. When you prep things, so like if you're sort of putting together the little kits, what is it, like 30 or so? Like, do you limit at all?
Sometimes if I buy something from Amazon and it comes with a set of 24, then 24 is what I do.
Yeah.
We always try and make sure that we have materials. We have a main library and a branch that's about 10 minutes away, just across town, but they serve different communities, you know, different neighborhoods. So we always make sure that we have materials at both locations. And I always look for something. I'm always conscious of the fact that not everybody can afford some of these. They seem like basic ingredients. Like I have a video going live tomorrow about moon craters. And part of what you do is you have a tray or a pan, and you put flour, and then you put, NASA, when they did their video demonstration, they had cocoa powder. Cocoa powder is not cheap, and it's not something that everybody has. So I'm like, well, what can we do besides cocoa powder? I'm like, cake mix. Right? Chocolate cake mix, put a little sifter, and it's just as fine as cocoa powder. And you can get it on sale for like $1.25 or $1.50, in the different stores. So I'm always looking for like, here, I'll show you cocoa powder, but guess what? No, not everybody has cocoa powder. So cake mix, $1.50, So I'm always looking for that too, mindful of what seems like a basic, simple ingredient to you and me might not be to some families.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. This is great. I have nothing. Everyone should learn from you. Go make moon craters. I want to see some strawberry DNA. We'll probably see if we can pull a list of the resources that you mentioned, and of course, share your YouTube videos. I mean, this is great. There's none. I
have a list that I can share with some links for you too, that you can share with people.
Awesome.
And if you watch my moon crater video, you'll see another one of those weird things that happens where my neighbor's free-range birds decided to be part of my videotaping. So the giant turkey and the roosters, they're in the background and wandering at my feet.
Oh my gosh! Oh,
so
and that's enough.
And you just go with it.
You do.
Like, my neighbor's turkey. And that's what and nobody expects you to be perfect. So that's, you do not have to be like a professional NBC videographer or something. You can just be yourself, and people like that,
I love this. Thank you so much. This was like a really good start to whatever day it is. Today, Tuesday. It's a really great start to Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? It's a really great start to Tuesday. Okay. Thank you, Nicole, for being with us.
You're welcome.